You mentioned the pieces of a puzzle. Are you looking at the big picture, or, the puzzle's finished situation?
Yeah, so the big picture is how do you not only have new schools but operate them as well as you can. What you don't want to do is build a beautiful facility and have to cut your staff, so the beautiful facility all of a sudden has 34 or 35 kids in the classroom. That's where we're trying to kind of thread that needle, and people have gotten on me for using that phrase too often, but it really is sort of a fine point, because facilities are only a part of the picture, like you said. You also have to have sufficient staff and sufficient class sizes, and we've talked a lot about how one high school can be about more opportunity for kids. We really, that was a big point we made, and how we can have College Credit Plus for more kids, and how we don't have to cut electives that right now only 7 kids sign up for. But the reality is, if you have to have dramatic cutbacks on staff because your operating funds are less, well then that's not really going to work well either. So you've got it. The whole picture has to be both, and so that's what we're making sure we look at. I have my own personal feelings, honestly. Like I want to see a bond issue. I think something below 4, I think we can pass. I know it's hard right now, but I think we can make a really good case about this is going to be a great opportunity for our community to really be different and be better than a lot of folks. We'll have a better facility. We'll have more opportunities. And so I think
with a lower number, will the amount of years still be there?
the amount of years is the same. Yeah, actually today the talk was between 36 or 37, and I can't remember. In all honesty, I was paying attention to certain things in the conversation and kind of dialing in on those, and I can't honestly tell you why one was 36 and one was 37. Obviously, just like a mortgage, the longer you spread it out, the lower the monthly payment is. Good questions though, and I'm happy to answer them.
If interest rates were to drop again, could you refinance if you would mortgage with a bond?
That's a good question. I don't think you can. I think you're locked in. I could be wrong, but I'd rather sort of under-promise and then over-deliver. I will tell you that anything we do in July is, we have to lock in how much money we're asking the public for. That could be a really good thing or a really bad thing for long-term, because we won't really buy the bonds or send the bonds to market for like 10 months. So, that's not until we're really paying the architect and paying the construction companies. Best case scenario, it's a lower interest rate, because what we would have to do at that point, or be able to do at that point, the money's still the same, but we'd have a little bit more wiggle room in terms of construction costs, in terms of some of what we could build. Worst case scenario, for instance, we've talked about locally funded initiatives. You might have been part of that. So, we want, if you've been in North Olmsted, there's not that much of a difference between just having an auditorium and having more of a performing arts center with some more amenities. It's about a $3 million difference. So, if the interest rates are great, well, man, all of a sudden maybe that's $10 or $12 million. If the interest rates are bad, well, now it's just 7, because that's what we said we'd have an auditorium. So, it's frustrating in that, given inflation, given interest rates right now, it's like the perfect storm. But at the same time,
Well, look at what happened to the market yesterday. Dropped 1,000 points.
yeah, no, exactly. It was exactly, literally, our municipal advisor called us today, and he's like, I want you guys to know, we've been projecting 5, we've been using 5 as your interest rate, but 5 is, they give you sort of, do you want us to be really aggressive, or do you want us to be more conservative? And, we always say, be more conservative. He said 5 at this point would be really aggressive. He said, I don't think we can get it done at 5. I would be advising 5.25. So it's like I said, there's little pieces, and ultimately we've got to put that into a jigsaw.
When is you were spoken about the 17 vocational
Career tech programs?
Yeah, how many will we be retaining with the new
All of them.
concept?
Yeah, all of them. So that's why it's kind of such an exciting prospect, is that nobody else will have their high school and 17 career tech programs as part of their high school. That's unheard of. You either have 3 or 4, and you share 3 or 4 with this district and this district and this district. Like when I was in Euclid, sorry, but I would say this, it kind of is like it's the old American Pie, like one time at band camp, like this. One time when I was in Euclid, but we had like 4 in Euclid, we had 4 in Mentor, 4 in Willoughby, and we just share kids and share programs. Or the other model is like Berea sends their kids to Polaris, Brooklyn sends their kids to Polaris. So we actually keep our kids in-house, and there's a lot of advantages. The biggest one is there's no travel time. That's the biggest advantage. And then secondly, though, there are teachers. We're not sending them. And I don't mean to stereotype, but when I was in Euclid, we were sending our African American kids out to Auburn, and it was a pretty bad experience for them, honestly. And again, I'm not sharing names, but that was tough. And so to keep them in-house with our teachers that we control, so to speak, it's a good advantage.
Years ago, we were told that Polaris could not handle the amount of students that we have enrolled in our
Probably true.
career tech programs.
Yes.
So
Players can handle anything they want with
they
money,
would
though.
have to really,
They'd have to expand.
yes,
Yes, and then
just for our school
Right.
district.
Correct. Yeah,
And
they're not built now for.
That's a loss of potential for the students there. If they were
Correct.
interested in something, and Polaris couldn't handle that overload.
And so that's a great point, and maybe what they also talked about were how there are limited seats at that point then. Because if you're sharing a consortium, Parma's only going to get 4 seats in that program and 5 seats in that program because everybody's feeding into that. I mean, right now they're all of our seats. What we do is we fill it with the kids who want it from our district, and then beyond that, beyond that, we actually have to open it up to charter schools. So we do have some kids from Consolidation schools come in, but that's only after our kids have exhausted, what they would want.
And the career tech program, Mrs. Bridgman, is an asset that is unbelievable.
Well, you gotta tell me, I graduated in 81, I took out on my campus under this switcher, this teacher.
Yep.
And the Pablo, wanting to learn more, and now I'm one of the most sought after building engineers in the city.
Oh, wow, really? That's awesome.
Well, I was with Kaiser and Houseman for 24 years.
Yeah, I was going to ask who you work for.
When I picked them up, they were like, no, it's your name.
Wow.
I was 53. 6 years ago, I was on a 53-year-old. They're like, no, you're coming in, you're reunion, you're going to make top scale, walking in the door. And my daughter just got picked up on Metro. My son graduated in 2020 with Autobody.
Did you ever work with Michael Kane? He worked for Kaiser years and years ago. He was in the buildings and grounds, facilities management. It's honestly, it's 35 years ago. When you said Kaiser, I thought it was worth a potential.
For about 30 years.
It's my uncle.
But, yeah. So, and my daughter, she's now Parma City School. She graduated.
Oh, wow.
So,
She graduated from where? I'm sorry.
here,
Oh,
in
great.
2018.
That's awesome.
So,
We have a third.
classes. This good brown area, she followed her mind and followed his hands. Same thing with me. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to see that
No.
spectrum leave.
Yeah.
It's a full spectrum of people, the multiple choice of the different abilities.
Yeah. Nor do we. That's a real strength, and quite frankly, as we grow and sort of change a little bit demographic, not that we're changing dramatically, but it's a very important sort of series of programs to continue. Talk about career tech, of course.
So, what is our plan if this bond issue doesn't pass?
So if it doesn't pass, and that's sort of why we have a sustainable plan. The 632 plan is sustainable. It's 6 elementaries, 3 middle schools being the same they are now, and then you've got Normandy and Valley Forge. So what people are sort of upset about is, well, Parma High should be one of the two, and there's an argument for that. But we think that ultimately the long-term vision is always going to be we've got to pass a bond issue, whether it's 2 tries, and we wait a year, wait another, I don't know, but we have to close one anyway. So let's close the one where we want to build, the new campus. Our hope would be that we can, If we can never, well, then we exist as long as we need to at a 632 model. You know, depending on enrollment, if you had to go down to a 631 model or 641, you never can see that far into the future because so much has changed in terms of state funding and different opportunities that, you know, even the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, they could come in and they could say, okay, it's your turn, and your 37% is up now. And so right now, we're asking for the entire, you know, 240 million or whatever that's up, just from our taxpayers. But if they were to come in and say, it's your turn, and now you're getting the 37%, well now, oh my gosh, you dropped that 3.95 mils to about 2.6 mils, and now it's even more palatable. So it's hard to say when that could happen, but to answer your question succinctly, if we have to be 632 for a good amount of time, we can exist at 632. It's not our vision, but it's survivable. It's a survival plan. Courtney, we're just taking, obviously it's a small crowd, so I didn't really do a presentation. Jackie's been with us through planning, and I'm sorry, what is your name again, gentlemen? Rob. I was going to say Rob, and I was afraid I was going to be wrong. So we've just taken some questions. I don't know if you have any questions or you want to ask anything.
No, I was really just coming to listen.
That's what Jackie said too. She's at least asked a couple.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do, but I don't
We're here. I'm here.
It's a perfect time.
Not kicking anybody out. I won't put you on the spot either though. So.
know. Let me think for a minute.
You're fine. Are they things that you want to ask more in private? Yeah. It's totally fine.
With aces and pads, do we know when we would be putting those?
Long term or next year?
For the 24 school year.
So for 23-24, ACES is going to go to Parma Park, and PACS we're going to try to see if we can fit into either Valley Forge or Normandy. We may not be able to do that. It might have to go to Parma Park as well.
My concern with that though is those are 18 to 22-year-olds
Yeah.
with an elementary crowd.
Yeah.
And part of the great thing with PACS is that they're still kind of.
At the high school. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the
and-
age that's a huge age difference, and it could be seen as being somewhat demeaning, derogatory to that
Yeah.
older population.
What is max? I'm sorry.
PACS is the 18 to 22 for special ed. We are lucky that we have that here because it's kind of like they can get out in the community with life skills and things like that.
Kind of like the county had saw.
Some very similar to something like that, yes.
Job training skills. Yeah, they do an amazing job. Yeah, honestly, first case or best case scenario, we will be in high school. We just got to figure out which one is going to be able to have the facility. We have not budgeted, so to speak, space at Parma Park because we're hopeful that we'll be able to put in one or two.
And I know both Forge and Normandy have things like a kitchen for them, laundry, like,
Yeah. Normandy is pretty big. Yeah. Well, actually, they both do. Yeah, they both have pretty big sites.
and besides like bathroom usage and things like that, like
Maybe
the
more
elementary
there.
school, the toilets are a little bit lower.
Yeah.
And if you already have kids who have mobility issues, you're gonna have to do some toilets and plumbing.
No, I agree. And you know, part of the challenge is we have to make Parma Park functional and yet not expensive. Because this was never this is supposed to be a stopgap, not a permanent home. So people have asked about air conditioning, actually. We don't plan to put air conditioning in a Parma Park. Now, there may be some ACES classrooms where we have to do that, but that's the same as what we would have done at, Densler, where there's a multiple disabilities unit. So
Yeah.
that's not treating it any differently. Our central office folks, I'm sure, are not thrilled. There will be some hot days in July, but
Casual
Yeah, and the reality is, like, how hypocritical would it be to ask teachers to teach 25 or 27 kids in a classroom on August 28th, 92-degree day, and then not do that same thing, so, no.
How many years did you have to do? I was on a roof with someone, I would say.
Yeah, right.
No, that's a respectable answer for
Yeah.
sure.
Now, when we're going to the two high school model,
Yes.
what is this gonna do to the amount of kids per class? Is this gonna increase it?
Per class, it really shouldn't have an impact. It's never been about class size. It's always been about, maximizing the use of space. We project about 1,700 kids at Forge, about 1,500 kids at Normandy. Forge, that number is not even close to something that has been a concern. 1,700 can easily exist there, and 1,500 is higher than Normandy's have. But in talking to the principal, she said we can easily take 200 more kids, so she's not concerned. Right now, they're in the low to mid 1,300s. They're about 1,335, I think. Actually, all of our high schools, and that's one of the things that I don't think people realize. Like all of our three high schools are all within about 50 or 75 kids of each other. They all finished in the 1,300s this year.
And it sounds like they'd be taking on so much, but you're completely removing the eighth graders from the building.
It's the middle schools, honestly, that are going to be a little bit, I don't want to say a challenge, but just in terms of getting bigger numbers. The reality is Greenbrier is already there, so there's not many kids. I mean, they finished the year at about 875 kids. I think we project them at 925, so it's not a whole lot larger. Shiloh's going to go up a couple hundred, and so will Hillside.
How is this gonna affect the staff that is currently employed here at Parma?
Did you ask him to ask that?
No, but thank you.
Courtney's here. She's one of our Parma Educational Association representatives from Parma City.
Assistant school bus driver, so.
Yeah, the reality is those are things we have to work through with our union. We've had preliminary conversations, but ultimately, to say exactly what that's going to look like today without kind of going through. When we went through this in Euclid, we had multiple meetings with our union to make sure we were on the same page as much as possible. So those are still conversations that have to happen.
Are you gonna have enough drivers?
Well,
Bus drivers to accommodate this vision of the two high schools?
bus drivers are an issue everywhere.
I mean, I saw 3 of them, and the assistant supervisor and the administrative assistant all retired at the same time.
Yeah. And it's not just Parma. I mean, it's bus
Everywhere.
driver. Yeah, bus drivers are a challenge.
I mean, not throwing an effort like, come on, we'll train you.
Yeah. So we have to be aggressive about getting bus drivers next year. We had some incentives this year for bus drivers. We're in negotiations right now. We may continue those just as a way to make sure we have enough workforce. The expansion or the consolidation, I should say, in terms of bus drivers, it won't change a lot about how many we need. We just expand their hours. The reality is expanding hours is probably pretty attractive to them, so that should actually help us retain folks because it's right now there's some on 4-hour guarantee, some on a 5-hour guarantee, and so we would shift a lot more to a longer guarantee. So that's not the concern. I'll be honest with you. The real concern is the first day of school next year, meaning 22-23. The 23-24, if we can staff that, I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of people that are going to say, well, we're going to leave at this point because, again, we're expanding their hours, which is attractive typically. But you're right. I mean, bus drivers are at a premium. It's a good time to be a bus driver. It's a good time to be anything where you will come to work every day. Yes. We need, I mean, it's Parma High asked me this question, at a meeting I had with them. I mean, it's not just Parma High, it's tough to get a workforce right now. And as much as I would love to say, well, let's break the budget and give really aggressive raises, well, we can't really do that either because, you've got 5-year forecast a little thin. So again, it's a little hole in the needle that you're just trying to find where that thread will fit.
Now, what is your thought with going to this two-by-four model and having everybody here in the Parma area, majority from what I saw at the meeting on Wednesday, were not happy. And I don't foresee them voting for this bond issue. So, I mean, now you go have a good chunk of Parma and something else not voting.
Yeah, you know, I think it's early to say that. We really haven't engaged in much campaign yet, not because we're being lazy, because we really got to commit to, you know, I'm meeting with architects on Thursday. I need something better in terms of what this is going to look like. Right now I have a nice drawing, but I need some renderings, like, you know, so we've got to get that ball rolling. We've got to figure out exactly how much this is, and then we've got to hit these, honestly, these streets in Northern Parma and be like, listen, you're going to have the best high school in the state right in your backyard. And quite frankly, and just being honest, in terms of dollar figures, you know, the folks in Northern Parma are going to pay a little bit less than the people in Southern Parma. And it just is. Their houses don't tend to be worth as much, and so, you know, let's get a bang for the buck right here in Northern Parma. So I agree. I mean, you know, we're not starting out in the best place, but, you know, there's 5 months left until an election as well. So let's go, that's what I'm saying. But we need some help first. We need some other things to fall in place.
A lot of people understand like how far north, I mean, Normandy's boundary goes all the way to Brook Park Road as well.
Already right now.
And
Yeah.
like Seven Hills, it almost butts up to, they do butt up with Brook Park. You know, like, there's that whole north end of Seven Hills that's north of Rockside that is just as far north to get to Normandy as it is for people who live in North Parma to get to Normandy or Forge.
Jackie, you're hitting on a really key point, because we looked at this when we were campaigning for that as far as 2 high schools. And so we looked at, like, okay, from the furthest point of where you would be going, so like if you take Normandy, the furthest point was going to be Ridge and Brook Park, right? On the eastern corner of that to Normandy. And then we were looking at, like, you know, Valley Forge, the same thing. And then we looked at, you know, the corner of, like, God, it would be West 130th and Sprague. In that corner, and then all the way over there, which would be Sprague and...
You're almost 21, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost the same. There was one that was shorter, and I think it was the current furthest walk to Forge. It was only like 3 miles, and everything else was like the same. It was like 4 1/4, 3.95, like right within about a quarter mile. So yeah, you're right. Like and I've always said this, with a triangle, there really wasn't a perfect one. Like if it was a row, right? Well, then it would make sense to close the middle one, but it's not a row. There's not. You know, you're not all 3 in a row. I mean, it's always been like this. So. Long story to say, there's awful lot of people walking an awful far away right now as it is. Or at least traveling
What's the
far away.
radius on the bus? Over 2 miles?
Say it again.
What's the radius on the bus over 2 miles?
2 miles and over.
Okay, and is that for all ages?
Yeah. Which actually, I don't love that, but it's just not a fixed move.
I was,
Well, currently, 9 through 12 is no busing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's all ages and buses now.
But with
K to 8.
consolidation,
because a lot of kids, you know, I mean, they don't have their driver's license, or their parents can't afford to give them a car. And when my son was in the 8th grade, my daughter was in 10th grade, living in the same domicile, my son got a ride. When I had to drive my daughter, I'm like, why? You know?
Yeah, I always.
But it all changed when you went to 9th grade anyway.
Yeah.
I just thought,
Somehow I was always able to find a ride. I walked a little bit my 9th grade year. The neighbor girls got a car, and then I can't remember. I won't tell the story about who drove me to school in 10th grade.
I used to leave once at 2 o'clock, I'd be sitting over here at the school at 2:30, the kids are going out, driving home, and go back to work by 3, and I walk out at 3:30 and go home. You do what you gotta do as a parent. Luckily, I only live 2 miles from where I work.
Yeah. Yeah, that helps. Definitely helps.
but adding busing would be a huge benefit,
Yeah.
regardless of,
Where we would be. Yeah. I agree. And we've committed to that both ways, with the 2 high school lane and the 1. Okay, well, thank you for your questions. Jackie, Sharon, anything? I don't want to cut you off. You're good. Rob, anything?
No, I was just, I don't know. It's a good idea for the consolidation, and just some people like, I don't, it won't make me happy to see it torn down, because I know my wife, all my siblings, and all my children graduated. Even though I don't have any kids in the school district, I'll be voting for it, because, I mean, in order to have a good, stable housing, you have to have a good police force, you have to have a good fire department, you have to have a good school system. If you don't have those 3, you're going to end up like East Cleveland. So, I mean,
And I guess what we hope, Rob, is that you'll have 2 or 3 conversations with your neighbors, and they'll have 2 or 3 conversations with theirs. And again, we're going to try to get it to a dollar figure that isn't, some kind of sticker shock.
it's like my sister, I was at her condo the other day, I had to do some major tour, condo, which I don't like, and she says, we got a condo over here, it's $275,000. She said, you sell all 3 houses, you can pay cash for this. I said, if I sell 2, I can pay cash for it. And she said, what, like, they offered me, I have a ranch on Sunwell, so we just called out for $200,000. I mean, I was like,
Good time to be selling, not a great time to be buying, right?
I saw another one, I thought I never, each one of my kids are getting a house.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
That's great.
I will tell you that my youngest will be a senior the year that the consolidation happens.
So 2 more years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's in sports and whatnot, but she's excited.
Is she really? Good.
Yes.
I was a little worried that the kids were going to start to get nervous.
Because of who her mother is, the poor girl has been drugged to many board meetings, and, she knows what's
She's okay.
going on. So when I told her that this would be happening, she was like, I knew it was going to have to happen eventually.
Yeah.
But she's excited, and as a typical teenager, already bored with high school, she's like, fresh meat. New people,
New
new
boys.
friends, she's like, and if it's awful, it's 1 year.
Yeah.
And I made it this far.
Yeah.
But she's excited, and, she knows people that come here from sports, from elementary school, from doing rec and everything. So she knows people in both schools already.
Yeah.
That
And
they don't get to see each other, so she knows. And some of our elementary schools aren't direct feeders to the middle school, so
Right.
they get split. And then even from middle school to high school, they get split. So it'll be a good little reunion for a whole bunch of them
Yeah.
who were not direct feeds through
Yeah.
their whole academic
We haven't had a
career.
true cluster system in a good amount of time.
That's the other thing, I don't think
Yeah.
people.
It hasn't been.
People get so
Boxed
focused
up.
that Seven Hills is Green Valley, Hillside, and some of these other, but when State Road closed, Densler became a split school, which then split Hillside. So none of them are absolute direct feeders to the high schools
Yeah, correct.
themselves.
Yeah.
And part of Seven Hills is split to go to John Muir, so.
Yep. Well, I'm glad, and you know what, her being involved, well, quite frankly, her coming to some board meetings too. It's helped increase the skids.
that brings up another, talking about sports, my son played football 4 years. And I know a lot of those kids are stubborn, especially football players. And let's say you send them to grab the boards, when a kid comes on the field and wants somewhere, like Gray Sox, just, this is where I originally came from. And they're gonna be like problems, they want to keep.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, those are things we've got to talk about with our coaches, honestly. You know, and those are conversations we've committed to have and committed to have relatively soon. But you know, I have my personal opinion on that. But
Well, I don't
I'd
know.
let the kid wear the socks he wants to wear. But you know,
I know, I mean.
I don't want to write that check for.
I mean, they were trying to get rid of the Redmond name, but I mean, you don't let a kid come out with like a little patch, like a Redmond or something.
I would just, my husband's currently the Valley Forge varsity basketball coach, and they were supposed to get new white uniforms this year, and he talked that they're gonna wait, because before we knew the consolidation happened, that they were gonna wait so that they could put red on the uniform, so we could
Oh.
put blue.
Oh, that's
I thought
awesome.
that was really cool.
Yeah.
I thought that was like,
That really is.
I thought that was really cool. So I know that, like, people are having those conversations, and that's what I think is important. Like, I work here, so a lot of people I work with are really focused on, we're leaving, what does that mean for us? But we also have to remember that we're kind of invading two other buildings where kids feel at home and the teachers feel at home. So that's really been like my focus, is all about, like, you know, not taking away from anybody, not punishing anybody, whether it be kids, staff, whatever, finding ways that we can, like, create more opportunities. And I think sports is obviously an easy one, you know, like in those kinds of ways. I think that's going to be like one of our greatest challenges, is trying to figure out how to create and not take away.
I'd agree, but I love that story about
Yeah, I thought that was
what
really
John's
cool.
doing. That is a conversation that we want to have with, starting with Parma kids and teachers, like, you know, what do you want to try to hold on to, and then you kind of branch out to the other schools, and hopefully they have some ideas of how do we honor, you know, without, we don't want to, like, that's not the idea, because we're still, you know, one school district and one community, but like you said, how do we not feel like we're invading? And so it's definitely good conversations to have.
Well, a lot of times too, when you're taking people out of one section and you're putting them in another section, or from one environment to another, there's going to be rifts and different issues. Some people aren't going to go, some people aren't going to have. Are we looking at maybe for the first 2 years having an increased school resource officer or team to, you know, to be there?
I don't know if it'd be increased, but it certainly would be consolidated, meaning, you know, I don't think we would add to the budget, but the fact that we, you know, right now we're staffing.
Will be going to those other buildings.
In some positions, that's correct, not in all.
No, I'm talking about the school resource.
Yeah, but the resource officers, so for instance, next year Parma's gonna have a resource officer. Instead of having 2 police, off-duty policemen, they're gonna have a dedicated resource officer, and we made a 2-year commitment to that person, so yes, to answer your question. Resource officers, at least if they're as good as Bob Curtin has been at the 2 middle schools, or even close to that, are really very valuable. I've just been so impressed by the job he's
My
done.
wife just retired. She was with Dora Park. She was a special ed assistant. Some of the resource officers she had to deal with, she thought they were the best. She said,
That's great.
old school and
Yeah, so those were actually those are our in-house officers. Yeah, so and so we have 4 of those, but we're talking about Parma Police when I say resource officers now. And Officer Curtin's been one that we added this year.
I don't want to see, I mean, bullying has always been an issue, but now that you're kind of jamming like 2 coins into the same bottom. It's
Good. Yeah. No, there's challenges. There's no question.
I saw, I mean, like I said, my kids aren't here anymore, but I want any of the other kids to feel.
Yeah, bad experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for coming out.